It's the Duffin Up Podcast.
All right, Duff Daddies and Duff Mamas, we have a very, very special guest for you tonight. He is the co-host of The Par Train, one of the premier golf podcasts on every platform known to man. Fantastic Instagram follow, fantastic TikTok follow, social media master. We have on what I call the Zen master of golf, but what he has just told me that he likes better is the Ted Lasso of golf. We have on the most positive man in all of golf, Evan Singer. Evan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. Now, I will say, I don't prefer that. It's just other people have called us that, which I was like blown away by. So both the Zen Master of Golf and the Ted Lasso of Golf, I don't know if I'm worthy of those, but it's very humbling and I'm honored to be called that. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Evan. So first question, what is the maddest you've ever been on the golf course in your entire life? We will take it away from the Zen side. We are going directly back into my domain. We're going into rage golf right now.
Well, it's a good question. I've actually been reflecting on this. You guys are gonna be the first to hear this because I've been wanting to create a video on this. I've realized recently that, and I will reflect this and relate it back to the everyday golfer in a second, but first I'll share my point of view on it, is I've realized that I've been putting so much pressure on myself, not to start too heavy, but I mean, you asked me to, so here we go. I've put so much pressure on myself this past year to be the success story, be the case study for all of our listeners. And what I mean by that is, leverage my mind in a way that it's a tool instead of a detriment. And even when I don't have it that day, even when my body feels off, even when I feel impatient or frustrated, to find a way to salvage it and stay upbeat, stay positive. Right. And so, I know, I coach golfers with the mental game, and I know a lot of people follow us now on the mental game. And so sometimes I'm out there and I'm not feeling great. And I tell myself, you should be feeling great, And one thing I've realized is that's almost a trap too. You can't go from feeling frustrated to really excited. Sometimes you have to go from being frustrated to a little less frustrated, or frustrated in a way that doesn't necessarily get in, my way. So I'll tell you a perfect story. Last weekend, literally 3 days ago, I shot a 50 on the front nine. Now I'm a 7 handicap, and I've been as low as a 5. My handicap's been going up a little bit. I've been working through some things in my swing, and I haven't shot in a 50 on a front nine in a very long time. And I don't know if you guys have ever had those 9s or even 18s where just it doesn't feel right in your hand. Something feels off. And even though you know that you want to commit, it's actually physically difficult to. There's just something where it's very difficult to let it go. Right. And, so in those moments, that's a good example of feeling actually a lot of shame and frustrated, because it's like, I put a lot of time into this game. It's my life now. I put a lot of money into it, and it's easy for me. I'm being perfectly honest with you. Sometimes I feel like not putting out a video the next day after having that experience, because who am I? So this recent shift and realization I've had is, look, and Gary Vee said this recently that I really liked. He's like, look, I'm not out there telling you that I'm like the biggest expert on the mental game. I'm just a mental game enthusiast that it's helped me a lot in my life of what I learned off the course. And I love using the game of golf as a way to practice it. Right. And so, on the front nine, I shot a 50. On the back nine, I shot a 37. And here's where the mental game is really interesting. A lot of it is what you tell yourself. A lot of it is what you focus on. And a lot of that's habits, right? But a lot of it's physical too. And you can use the awareness you have for your mental game to also plug into physical stuff. So one thing I realized was, okay, I'm going to take myself out. I'm going to observe that shame I just experienced. That's not me. That's just the story I'm telling myself because I want to be here, but today I wasn't. So that doesn't mean that I suddenly suck. It just means I'm having a really off day. Okay. So it's the hardest game in the world. I'm lucky if I play once a week. Let me be a little less hard on myself. What am I going to do in this back nine? I'm playing with my soon to be brother-in-law. I don't want to be miserable. It's hot. Like, let's just enjoy ourselves. Okay. So I took the pressure off, but then I thought to myself, well, because I'm feeling like it's very hard to commit right now, what am I not doing? And I realized my body wasn't really firing. So like the thing that I do when I play my best, I was all arms, so I was getting really tentative and I wasn't releasing the club because I was holding on to it and my body wasn't firing. So of course I'm getting misses that I never see because I don't do what I normally do. So then I just focused on like a really like tempo, really light takeaway and just fire through my body, kind of like I did when I played baseball, and I shot a 37, so that's how crazy this game is it's like, and I think that's the thing for everyone to remember. And everybody's had those tales of 2 9s, right? But it's not, everybody's gotten down on themselves. I do it probably more than you would probably think I do. But I think it's a practice. I think that's the key, right? It's a practice to maybe decrease the amount of time you feel down, or accept that you feel down and play with it versus putting yourself down for 3 more hours because you feel down, right? It's a weird cycle like that.
It definitely is. And I know that for a fact, going kind of reciprocating a story. Like, I swear every time I shoot a great round, it is followed by a terrible, terrible round. For example, I shot for the first time ever this year, I shot 79 on a par 72 course. I was pumped about it.
Awesome.
Go out 2 days later. It's a different course. It's a much harder course down in Hilton Head, where my family is. And I go out and I shoot a 95. And I'm just like, of course this would happen. But like, I didn't get too mad, but I was just like, I just had blow up holes where I was just like, I think it was +5 through the first 3 holes. And I was like, okay, this is how it's going to be today. Let's get through it. Let's do it.
Brendan, let me ask you, did it feel worse because the entire time you were telling yourself, I'm a 79 shooter now, I shouldn't be doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I was like, I shot a 30. Oh God, what was it? I shot a 40, a 40 on the front 9 and a 39 on the back 9. And I was just like, I think I had 6 straight pars on both, and I was just feeling it. And I was just like, and I think I had like 1 birdie on the back and then no birdies on the front. But like, when you're just like, I'm gonna be really, really, really bad right now. I was on the par train. Like, I was feeling it. Like, I felt great. And then you go out 2 days later and I was like, bogey bus. Like, I'm on you right now, man. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think I can get off.
Well, isn't it funny, Brendan, how you weren't trying to shoot a 79 the day you did?
No.
You were probably just out there. I'd be curious to hear actually and unpack what you were thinking and what you were focused on. Mm-hmm. But the next day you carry the expectations that you can do it again. And it's funny. A lot of people are like, no, it's my swing. What do you mean? Like, how could my mind make me hit it OB? Well, your mind, your brain tells your body, right? It has to start here before your body moves. So if there is anything that could get in the way of what your body does naturally, any thought that could create interference or tension will get in the way of your true swing coming out. And expectations is the number one thing that gets in the way. So it makes total sense. That happens to a ton of people. And we do mental mailbag episodes where we, answer 4 to 5 voicemails that come in. And that's a really common one. I will commend you though, Brennan, because most people, the question is, how come when I shot the 40 on the front, I shot a 50 on the back? And a lot of times that's because they're thinking about breaking 80 and their whole approach changes, right? So
Yeah.
a crazy game, but it's a practice, right? There's no, I've made it. There's no finish line. There's no, and let me ask you this, Brennan, when you shot a 79, what changed in your life?
Just me being really happy. Like that's like I played with my mom, and I like bought her lunch and bought drinks, and I was like, this is great. You know what I mean? And then I go out and when I'm shooting a 95, I'm riding with my dad and I'm playing with our full family. I'm playing with my sister and my mom, my dad. And yeah, like they're feeding me drinks. They were like, we need him to feel better about, and like jokingly, of course, because alcohol is not a crutch or anything, but like they're like when he's playing bad, just try and get him another drink. He'll hopefully like, kind of snap out of it. And it's like, it's not really a snap out thing. It's just, and what you said too, it's like, it's kind of an acceptance. And I think I got to the point in that round where I was like, I'm not going to go 79, but I was like, let's try and keep it in the 80s. And I think if I would have gone what you said and just like, screw it, let's not even think about anything. Let's just take it one shot at a time. I probably could have bounced back from, I think I shot a 48 on the front and then a 47 on the back. I probably could have bounced back a little bit more on that 48 and maybe gone to like a 42 or something like that and been a little bit more, I wouldn't say respectable because it's whatever, but like, I mean, you hear about all the stories about people like when I complain about a 95 and there's people that have never broken 100 before, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I think, and one of the things I've definitely caught on listening to you guys a lot more is that kind of mental side of just got to let it ride here and there sometimes. And that's going to be the most important part of it too, where once you get your mental game in place, and I think for me, it's definitely I know we were talking before and you said it's around the greens as well. A lot of times it can be just on the green for me. And it's just like, Brendan, don't three putt, Brendan, don't three putt. Mm-hmm. And you hit your first putt and it gets it like halfway to the hole. And it's like, why are you even telling yourself not to three putt? Like just hit the putt and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And that's just a pattern, right? That doesn't need to be the reality. That could be what you've done this time. But Bob Rotella told us, he's like, look, if you do nothing else, focusing on where you want it to go versus where you don't want it to go is the number one thing you could do. Now, the one thing I want to say, Brendan, why I asked you that question, because I don't want to act like the breaking 80 doesn't mean anything, because trust me, I get it. It's an amazing feeling. I think the point I'm trying to make, though, is once you do it, you think that you reach this peak, right? And then once I get there, then I'm going to get to scratch. From once I do that, the floodgates are going to open. And sometimes they do. But my point is that once you achieve something, it's going to feel good for what? Day, 2 days, maybe a week, maybe a month. But then after that, you're going to want it again. And you're going to want better than that. So that's why placing all of our worth, and look, I'm not perfect at this either. This is a practice like we talked about before, but identifying your worth and your happiness with those markers will always leave you wanting more, because that marker will change. That's a moving target, So I don't want people to think, well, just don't think about it. When, like, if, your second round, it's okay to think about it. It's okay to acknowledge that you're thinking about it. The only difference is to accept that you're thinking about it and choose to think about something a little bit more productive, right? Sometimes I shouldn't be thinking about it. Why am I thinking about it? That's what creates the negative spiral of that resistance and the interference in the first place. So, acceptance is a big thing. And understanding what you did that day, physical and mental, because maybe it wasn't your game. Maybe it was, you just weren't committing, right? So then maybe instead of focusing on your score, maybe you calculate your commitment percentage and you change your success metric to something more executional than result focused, right? Maybe it was really windy. Maybe you just didn't judge the turf that day. It was a different course. It was a harder course. A 79 on one course, it's probably more like an 86 or 85 on the course you played, right? So there's ways that we can kind of, think about it where it doesn't feel as drastic of a, I'm on top of the world and I feel like shit.
Yeah.
Maybe
No, 100%.
we find a happy medium, but there's nothing wrong with celebrating and feeling great about the accomplishment. It's only when that accomplishment gets in the way from you doing it again the next time.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Evan. It's definitely exactly what you said on that side. Like, and my biggest thing is, I'm sure like everyone, you get down to a course where there's not a lot of water and you're able to like kind of not spray it, but you know what, you have a lot more leeway. So the course I shot 79 on, a lot more leeway, a little bit of a longer fairway, but I mean, just the hazards in general, like the water's not really there as much. And if you do find it, like it's not good. And then on the other course where you shoot a 95, there's water on every hole, and it's my mom's favorite because it's beautiful and it goes out to the ocean, so we have to play it. But I hate it, and my dad hates it, and my sister hates it, but she loves it, so we got to play it. But you get into that area too, where it's just in the back of your mind, you're like, I never play well at this course, and then it comes into fruition. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I definitely feel you on that side, to try and almost like reset your mind every time you're going to play. And I think for me at least, and I kind of want to get, one of the best podcasts I think I've ever listened to is when you guys were talking to Chris Nadel, who has become a bit of a cult hero, I feel like, in the PGA Tour world. As they say, the best player to never have although I think he had, I'm not sure if he ever had PGA Tour status or not, but he's considered the best player to not have status in golf right now. I think he qualified 5 or out of 7 times this year. Played in 2, like
four out of 5 maybe, but then he is within 7 weeks had made the cut at the US Open. So pretty good run.
Yeah. It's insane seeing that, and him going in on a Monday and him telling you guys, I have to, like, it's not a yes, or it's not like a, I expect to, I want to. It's like, I have to hit 9 birdies today. If I don't hit 9 birdies, I'm not making it. And I'm over here like poo-pooing my, not poo-pooing, but being like, just the expectations management for me. And when you hear that, it's like, I also need to pull back and be like, I'm not him. Like I am. And that is something that I definitely think, listening to you guys a lot and getting that side, but also listening to Amateur Mindset versus the Pro Mindset series. I know you guys had the Red Rooster group on, and just being able to hear those different stories about what you need to be like, how you need to separate yourself and not have those expectations that you're gonna hit it in the fairway at 275 to 290 every time, and then stick it within 10 feet and hit the birdie putt. Because most of the tour players can't even do that on a regular basis either. So being able to kind of hear both the pro side of like, this is what I need to do, but it's also my living, versus the not pro side of go out, have fun, and have your expectations, but just know you're not going to be that guy out there, is something that I think that I take from your guys' podcast. And I definitely use it to kind of help on that kind of positive image side that we did talk about earlier too.
Can I squeak in here? I can't get a word in edgewise. You guys, Evan, I can listen to you talk all day. I'm sure you hear this all the time, but like, I feel like you're on the golf course with me. Like, you just know exactly what on in my mind. But I guess that's part of just being a golfer, and we share similar frustrations on and off the course, and what Brendan was just saying is like, if I don't score 9 birdies in a row, then I'm quit. Do you have any advice for myself and any listener who struggles with this, where, maybe you start out, even par, under par for, like the first 6-7 holes. And then there comes that 8th hole. We make that triple bogey, and all of a sudden the wheels fall off, and you're like, you think it's the end of the world. You know, what's going on mentally in my head? What's a way to fix that? And I love what you said that maybe it's not going to get better that next hole, but it's going to get better eventually. And so I don't know if you have any advice. You know, I'm sure people go through it all the time, but please, I'm going to shut up because I just want to hear more of what you have to say, Evan. It's incredible. Keep going.
I appreciate it. Well, I think the first thing is treating the triple as information instead of a sounding alarm. So why'd you triple? Did you get excited? Did you take the wrong club off the tee? Did you not realize that there was water there? Were you thinking about, did you not commit? Were you scared of making a mistake? Were you thinking about where not to go because of the great start you had? You know, maybe you didn't judge a lie correctly. Maybe you picked the wrong club. There's a million things. And Colin Morikawa's coach talks to us. We've had him on the show a couple times, and that's how he and Colin work together. So, little story, he and Colin, when they practiced growing up, because he's been Colin's coach since he was 8 years old, mental and physical coach, by the way, swing coach and mental coach. He would ask Colin to drop a ball, and it's on Colin to pick the club and the shot and to hit the shot, right? Then they would say, okay, what'd you learn? Maybe Colin would pick a different club. Maybe Colin would say, oh, yeah, I didn't realize how thick that rough was. I probably should put that a little back in my stance or take an extra club, right? So Colin gets the choice to pick something else on the second ball. Third ball, Rick, the coach, chooses. So what Rick was doing is he was using practice as a way to ingrain that level of thinking when you're out on the course, right? And so one story, one of my favorite analogies is back when I used this analogy when, what's that show from Netflix that was huge with the game of chess? Something Gambit.
Oh, God. Yes, Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit. Thank you. So when Queen's Gambit was really popular and everybody was like getting into chess again, I realized, you know, when you're backed into the corner on a chessboard, you don't tell yourself how much you suck and freak out that you're backed into the corner. You think to yourself, you're literally in your mind thinking, well, if I move there, that's not good because the pawn will get me. Well, if I move there, I'm setting up something bigger for the queen. Okay, I really only have three options. I'm going to pick the third option because it's my best move here, right? So that's how the best players in the world play golf. They think to themselves, okay, I'm behind a tree. What's my best move here? And Dr. Joe Parent, the author of Zen Golf, told us, give yourself the best chance to make birdie without taking an unnecessary risk. And for some people, that's par. For some people, that's bogey, depending on your level. But it's all about, where can I put this ball where I'm the most comfortable? So the club that I feel the best about, the angle that gives me the widest part of the fairway. And if you play that type of golf, you're probably going to be in a better position. And that's kind of a way to hack your way into playing shot to shot, because you're embracing that it's a game of recovery. Because a lot of times I hit my best shots out of the trees. Well, a lot of people do, because our focus is like this. It narrows, you know? And I used to have a lot of stories about, God, if only I could hit a fairway, you know? But then I was creating this story about how bad I am off the tee. And that's the thing getting in my way from being a better golfer. So of course I have anxiety on the tee. So then I started telling myself, I am an incredible player out of the trees. Like, one day I played with my buddy, Chris. Chris is in the fairway every hole, just off the fairway, maybe. I'm punching 4 irons to the front of the green and getting up and down. And he's like, I can't even believe that you're doing this right now. I beat him that day.
Wow.
And so that's maybe, you know, a reminder of the importance of practicing the short game and stuff. But like, overall, to answer your question directly, I think it's trying to become curious and remove ourselves as best you can. I know it's easier said than done. It can be very frustrating. But if you can use those times for information instead of defining you, it can help you reduce that negative spiral. So that triple bogey can be a laughing moment and like this freaking game, you know. But what did I do? Yeah, I kind of got out of my routine that I did hole 1 through 7. So I just got to get back to my routine. And then it's just a very matter of fact, logical way. If you watch the pros, I mean, they're hitting it all over the map and they're very like shoulder shruggy about it. You know, they just kind of walk to their ball and they hit it. So, you know, I think pros underreact, amateurs overreact. And that's a good reminder for that stuff.
Unbelievable answer. I'm so glad I asked. Oh, hell, Evan. Jeez, Lou. When did you start playing golf? And at what point did you turn from just your average amateur golfer to someone who just like almost studies the mental side of golf? Because you are a perfect example of, everyone says golf is 90% mental. And from all of what you just said, everyone can agree, everyone listening, it really is 90% mental. Because before is that your mental thought about standing over the ball is going to affect you physically, like you said, and it's going to take you out of your comfort zone of doing your routine and everything like that. And it's fascinating. And so when did you get from being an average golfer to being someone who is on the mental side of golf specifically?
Yeah. Well, I'm still probably an average golfer, but I'm from St. Louis originally. I'm in Los Angeles now, but I like most people in St. Louis, I was baseball obsessed. That was my sport. I bought a book about how to get discovered by scouts, and I practiced every day with my dad. I knew all the fundamentals. I knew the situations. I just loved working on something. I loved being, getting better at something. And I was a late bloomer. So I was like 5'2" as a freshman in high school. And, everyone else is so much bigger and faster than me. And I was like 5'7" as a senior, grew to 5'11" now. So in college, I kind of shot up. But long story short, baseball wasn't really, I thought I was going to play in college. I thought I was going to play pro. It didn't end up working out that way. It broke my arm my junior season. And there was just something about it that I kind of lost the fun. Everybody kind of has that varsity coach or coaches that it becomes a job. It's so serious and you kind of lose the love of it. So I was as a senior and I'm like, well, I could win my spot back as a senior and go to Florida and play these 2-a-day practices and tournaments, or I could try and play golf with all my buddies and go to Mexico for my senior trip as a senior in high school. And, I chose that. So the day that I got I was cleared by my surgeon after all my rehab on my arm, I went to the driving range, first place I went, and I never played baseball again. And I think because I wouldn't allow myself to play golf because I played baseball and it kind of messed with my swing a little bit, I think that delayed gratification made me an even bigger nut. So I was always a fan of the game, but I didn't allow myself to play. And I used to hide the fact that I was like buying self-help books in high school and like going to that aisle in Barnes and Noble and Borders and like reading these like self-help, mindfulness books. That long story short, one of my best friends moved in across the street from me when I was 12, and his parents were super into that. And one day he just said something to me. I was like sick. He's like, it's probably something you're thinking. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just sick. There's no relation. What are you talking about? Long story short, through their influence and a book that his mom gave my mom, I found it in her trunk. I started reading it and I was like enthralled by it. I bought every book I could find. I used to hide it from people, like I said. And, as I started playing golf, I bought the book Zen Golf by Dr. Joe Parent. And I realized, holy cow, golf is the best there's no better mirror of our thoughts than the game of golf. So I used to love that the stuff I was working on in life, of not letting external things necessarily throw me off my game mentally. Like I could be the chooser of the way I feel based on the thoughts that I think. I was just fascinated by that. Like it made me rethink the whole way I was living my life. I stopped feeling like a victim. People kept noticing, like, how are you so positive all the time? And I was like, well, it was a practice. It was a choice, like I'd rather look at things in the bright side than that everything sucks. One makes me feel like shit. The other makes me feel happy. So, you might make fun of me for it, but at least I'm happy. So, that's kind of how it started. And then I was like, wow, golf's such a great practice. And then 2016, we started the park train, and it wasn't mental game right away. We got to a point where I was like, we're kind of like everybody else right now. And like, what's our niche? Like, what is the thing that is really true to us and me? And I just loved geeking out. Like I could geek out with you guys for hours on the little things that make us do what we do and what makes us cringe versus get excited, and finding people's patterns and what they value, and then helping people, become more productive with the way they think and happier. And so we started doing that with golf. And to me, I don't know, I get comments all the time that it's like the ultimate cheese ball. This is a cringe account, and yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel good to read that. But other times I just remind myself that like my messages, our messages, it's not meant for them yet. So it's okay. Like there's people that also tell me that I've changed their life, which is like the most amazing thing I could ever hear. So now, I'm trying to help people use the game of golf in a way that doesn't have to be so negative and just constantly putting ourselves down, and be about getting wasted and like loving the time away for our wives. Like if that's the way you see the game of golf, that's cool. Like no judgment, but I'm trying to use the game of golf as a way to help people become happier, more fulfilled people. And that is kind of cheesy, but I don't know, it kind of changed my life. So I'm trying to do the same for others.
Boy, that 1970s feeling of I'm playing golf to get away from my wife. You still hear that out on the course sometimes, and it's always funny. I'm just like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And that content does work. Like obviously there's a ton of accounts and platforms that get shared probably a lot more than my stuff does. But I just made a decision that I'm just going to stay true to me because I want to help people versus, just putting stuff out there that I think will get likes and follows and stuff.
Absolutely. No. And that is, I feel like for everyone, that's so important to have kind of the different areas where you can go if you want to see like stupid people doing stupid things on the golf course, which like I don't personally enjoy that much when I see like guys driving the golf cart into the river, into the lake. Like, okay, that's fine. There's plenty of guys out there like, James Nicholas and a bunch of the other TikTok guys who just are the smoothest swingers I've ever seen in my entire life. Like I can go there for them. I can go to your stuff if I'm like feeling pretty blue, and it's just like, hey, let's get back on.
Everybody's got their thing.
It's ours is just we stink at golf and but we still love it, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But I feel like that rings true to kind of everyone too, where you kind of need that, everyone has their own little areas, but at the same time, like I like that everyone kind of interacts with everyone's little area too, and it's great to be able to hear kind of, the important thing that you mentioned too is for every, one hateful comment, you probably get 5 better comments, but our natural reactions, I feel like, is to look at that hateful comment and be like, well, why did you do that? Instead of thinking about like you changed my life, like you've changed my golf game for the better. And I feel like you guys and you especially, Evan, like definitely have evolved to concentrate more on the positive ones. And I love when you guys share like the messages were from people where it's like, I was really down and I listened to one of your episodes, or, I saw like an Instagram post and, it just made me feel a totally different mindset. And, stuff like that makes me feel good. So I definitely enjoy when that comes across the timeline as well.
Yeah, no, same. I appreciate that. I mean, the one thing I'll say on that is we do that, a negative comment, kind of similar to a bad shot, right? So like, let's say you shot an 81 instead of 79. It's pretty common, and I made a TikTok on this, but it's pretty common to end the round and say, well, that 3-putt or that double bogey is why I shot an 81. But you know what we don't do? You forget about that 10-footer you made, or that up and down you made from the trees, or that unbelievable chip shot you hit. Like I think when you hear the pros talk, it's very apparent to me that you have to pull the good, because if you don't pull the good, how are you going to keep going? It's just going to be, it's much harder. It might be true that double probably didn't help you, but I guarantee you that if you were 1 or 2 shots off your best score, you probably did a shit ton of stuff really good.
Yeah.
And that could be, I mean, we had one guy call in for our mailbag episode that's going to drop on Sunday. And he talked about how he shot like an 81. He never broke 80. And I think, what was the word? Devastated. And what other word? Like back to the drawing board, I think is what he said. And we said in our response, like, hey man, I get it. I know how you feel. I felt that way, but you are not back to the drawing board. You're right there. And I think that's our job as humans is, look, I've been studying how to use my mind more productively since I was 16 years old. I turned 35 next month. And if I don't remind myself of stuff, I forget it. It's just the way we're wired. We're wired to see the negative and the threats because that's how we're designed to survive. So, I think that's an important thing to reiterate to people is there's no such thing as I made it or I finally got it. It's only about being committed to the repetition and the practice of it. So something to remember.
No, absolutely. That's makes total sense on my part too. Like, got to think about the pot, like, and like what you, and when I brought it back up, when I brought up the Chris Nagel part earlier before, it's like, I have to I have to go out and get 9 birdies. I have to have that positive mindset not that I have to do it, but like I have to have the mindset that I'm going to do it. And I feel like that's like a huge positive mindset there too. But boy, if I ever told myself I have to go out there and get 9 birdies, I would be sorely disappointed at the end of the round for sure.
Get this. You guys saw, what was his name that won? I forget the player's name. He made a quadruple bogey on the first hole.
Thomas the Tank Kim. Oh my God.
So get this.
I have been on,
Speaking
Timmy
of Chris
knows
Nagel.
this. That's why Timmy's laughing so hard. I have been on Ju Young Tom Kim since the US Open, when I found out he goes by Thomas because his favorite
Thomas
thing growing up was Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah.
So his parents started calling him Thomas. And he's like, every time I come to the US, I gain 10 pounds because of all the McDonald's I eat. I'm like, I love him. I can't help it. I'm like, this is the greatest guy. And he had another quote today that he has not checked his bank account yet to see the Wyndham money come in. Cause he says, Tiger never had to check his. Why should I check mine? I'm like, this kid's amazing.
I love that. Man.
That is the most positive thing I've ever heard in my life.
I might use that.
I am so sorry that I took it off the rails on that, but I know where you're going. Sorry, I have found my new favorite Korean golfer, and our other co-host Brian is a big Sunjae Im guy, so now we have a little rivalry.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing.
So I'm actually going in a different way than you probably think. So I'm not going to go the bouncing back after the quad to win a tournament. That was amazing.
Oh.
But speaking of Chris Nagel, imagine having the year that he had. And that win by Kim bumped him from the Corn Ferry Finals.
I
That long
did hear
shot
that.
win bumped him from Corn Ferry Finals. So imagine being one of these guys where you're just fighting to get starts and status, and you actually grind better than probably anyone's grinded on the Monday circuit, maybe ever, or at least in a while. I don't know the history, but I would imagine he's up there. And then to be told that you can't get to the finals to fight for a Corn Ferry Tour card. I mean, that, if think about that, Chris has to focus on the good, because if he beats himself up over one putt, or, I mean, he missed it, by a point or two, that's going to be tough to swallow for anyone. But just remember that example, because the only way to keep going is to remember the stuff that you've done well, and learn from the bad stuff.
Absolutely. And it's crazy because I know they said there's like everything going, and I think the Monday Q Info guy actually mentioned him in like a tweet the other day, because it's like Bubba Watson and a couple of other guys who like have basically already signed their live contracts are still on like the FedEx list, because they have not teed up yet, but so they're not getting. Yep.
I gotta go.
No problem, Tim. Thanks, Tim.
Evan, I have a good golfer poll for you too, specific to you. Shoot, I'm gonna make a TikTok for you, and I'm gonna send it to you for the golf
Okay.
poll. Evan,
Thanks.
All right, see ya.
Unbelievable. Calling in on, I totally forgot that he mentioned yesterday his getting off the rails on the podcast, but that's okay. He mentioned yesterday he was filling in today, so he had a shift. But I totally forgot about it. But great to hear from Tim. So yeah. Oh God, where was I going with that? But yeah, so it was Bubba Watson apparently also, and a couple of other guys as well, are still like on the FedEx Cup list, and they knocked off like, I think they knocked Matt Wallace out of the FedEx Cup playoffs. I think they knocked like a couple of guys got like knocked out of the Corn Ferry Tour finals too, because of them still being on the list, even though they haven't officially, teed up for live. They've already signed their contracts and they're going. So it's crazy to hear on that side too, where it's just like a bunch of the guys grind. And like you said, like with Chris, especially, like a bunch of these guys are grinding like crazy, and to miss out by a point. I don't know if you saw the Justin Lauer interview after he made bogey on the 18th hole, and it like knocked him from like 123 to 126, which ended up being 127. But he just got up there and he was like crying, and he's like,
I did see a little bit of that.
I need to find the positives in this, but right now this just sucks. And I'm like, I can imagine like being in that mindset of like, you had a pot, like I can't imagine being in that mindset, but just on the mental side, like, oh God, must be absolutely brutal.
Like I talked about earlier, like, sometimes I think people get it mixed up that like our stuff would say, no, he needs to be positive right away. I'm not saying you need to be positive all the time, because if he was trying to be positive in that moment, or getting down on himself that he wasn't more positive, he would have felt worse. So in that type of thing, it's okay to feel down a little bit. It's when it starts to, get in the way of the stuff you're trying to do. That's when these tools become really valuable.
Gotcha. No, and I completely agree on that side. It's definitely one of those areas where I feel like all the golfers need to improve on kind of the positive, but at the same time, like there's going to be times when you're negative and you just can't, and exactly what you said to start, you just can't help it. Sometimes you're going to be negative about something. You're not feeling great that day, but it's kind of pushing through that. So hopefully we get to see like a bunch of those guys push through that on that side too, which would be amazing. Evan, I know we talked about definitely been talking all of the positive mindsets and everything like that. But two areas I definitely wanted to cover with you real quick was number one, your podcast about going to Bandon Dunes and playing it for the first time. And for people that don't know what Bandon Dunes is, it's one of the most prestigious we're gonna do this one last time. Prestigious courses in America. Commonly, their first course is almost every year in the top 5. I feel like, they I know they've added a couple, at least one other course there too. It's kind of like with Whistling Straits has a Straits course and the Irish course. I know they've added, I think, 1 or 2 more courses out in Bandon. But I definitely want to hear, your first time there. And I know you had a couple areas on your podcast where you're talking a little bit about the miscues and being there for the first time and what you enjoyed about it and what you thought you could also improve on. So definitely want to hear kind of your side of playing, one of the most prestigious courses in America and being able to take it in, but at the same time, you're still playing a very, very difficult course and you might not be playing your best. So like, how do you kind of go with that on that side?
Yeah. So Bandon has 5 courses in the top 15 in the country. So it's been called the #1 golf resort in America. Definitely one of the best in the world, easily. And this was actually my second time going, but I talked in that podcast a lot about what I did differently my second time versus the common mistakes I made my first time, which I think is so important because, this is a trap in golf, right? You spend a lot of money on it. You add travel to it. You've got that narrative going where if you're not playing well, it can feel like a waste. It feels like all that buildup, all of that money, all of the travel time to get there can feel like a waste. The things I'd say about going to Bandon is I think I see a lot of people do things at Bandon that I think would be great to do at every other course, which is it's such a special place that people are excited to be there. People are just happy to be there. And I think because it's a links course, 5 links courses, the most common mistake that people make when going to Bandon is they try and play the way they do at home. At Bandon, they'll play for, 3+ days, 36 a day. And right when they're about to leave, they start to realize how to play it. That's a mistake I made. I was working on my swing leading up to it. I should have been working on how to flight the ball down and practicing my bump and runs and my yardages with a half. What does a choke down 5 in the back of my stance do? How far does that go? That type of stuff. So I think Bandon Dunes Golf Resort really is a great teacher for playing the way that playing what golf gives you, right? So you shouldn't really even be using your 60-degree wedge unless you're in a greenside bunker. Like you should be using pitching wedge 9-iron or even less everywhere around the greens. I didn't even like hitting full shots because it's such a sandy soil. So what I would do is I'd put it back in my stance, whatever the yardage would be. I'd take 2 more clubs than what that yardage would call for. And I'd hit little punch shots in the back of my stance. And here's the thing, when you commit and submit to, I'm going to play a different style of golf than I'd play anywhere else, it can be really, really fun. If you're fighting it the whole time, it can be really frustrating, right? So it's kind of that acceptance piece again. It's like, you just kind of have to accept this is links golf. You have to play the way that links golf calls for. So instead of just hitting a 60-yard shot to the middle of the green, flying it all the way, you can get a little creative and say, oh, well, the architect, look, it's got this big mound on the left side. I'm going to run it up that mound. I'm going to see if I can roll it back towards the pin. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least it's fun to try, And the last thing I'll say is sometimes I've found that we can put these courses on a pedestal and we're almost intimidated by them because of that lead up, of the anticipation, of the prestige and the rankings and the money. And it's just a golf course. It's beautiful. They're amazing. It's one of my favorite places. You can see I've got a bunch of signs on my gallery wall from Bandon.
Oh yeah.
But it's it can be a trap that it can be challenging to commit because you can be so tentative because you're in awe, right? So I would suggest be in awe, but do it in a way that is a little bit lighter. I think a sense of humor is really important. And that's at Bandon, that's everywhere. You kind of talked about earlier how people get really down on themselves and they try and turn it around. Just having humor is a great way to do that. Like Dr. Joe Parent, the author of Zen Golf, told us, like, when you hook it 80 yards left OB and there's water right, instead of getting down on yourself for hitting an OB, he compliments you on how good of a job you did of avoiding the water. Like, you did a really good job avoiding that water, right?
Oh,
Now
that's awesome.
And that's just like, now the information is you probably were really focused on where not to hit it.
Yeah.
Let me maybe pick a club if I'm really uncomfortable that lays back, doesn't even bring that water into play, and focus on where you want to hit it, all that good stuff. But the point is that that's a really great way to disarm that panic siren that goes off when you make a mistake. And I think that's really important at Bandon. I will say, I lied. This is my last thing I'll say on Bandon just because I love it so much. The one thing you have to do, if it's possible, is play the preserve first. The preserve is arguably the best short course par 3 course in the world. Every hole is on the ocean. Could have been an amazing par 3 in its own right on any big course. But it's casual. You can play with as many people as you want. You get little bags to carry 6 clubs with you. You can play barefoot if you want. But playing the preserve first is a really great, light, casual way to learn how to play links golf before you play the big courses. So practice your punch shots, practice your bump and runs, and you'll learn really quick which shots you can't hit and how to flight it and all that stuff. But that's the biggest mistake, is people try and play the way they play at home. They don't know how to flight the ball down. They don't accept that it's links golf. They use their wedges and not playing the preserve. I would bookend my trip. I'd start my trip with the preserve. I'd end it with the preserve. But
Very
if they want more
interesting.
details, obviously my podcast on the Bandon trip, just search Out of the Office Bandon Dunes. I've done one. I've interviewed Chris Kaiser, who's the son of Mike Kaiser, the owner of Bandon, a couple times, that talks kind of about the history and things about Bandon. But if you want to give me pro tips before I go, definitely listen to the Out of the Office Bandon Dunes episode.
That's amazing. No, and I do feel like, especially here in America, where we do not, like what you just said, I think there's, maybe 10 true, probably more now, 10 to 20 true links courses in America. Whereas, you go over to, the UK and Ireland, and links golf is just there. So we have an entirely different way of playing golf. We play what I was talking to an Irish buddy, he calls Parkland courses, where it's wide fairways, big rough, trees everywhere.
Yeah.
And you just go, and your whole point is to hit it high and to hit it far, and you want to see how high and far you hit it, and then you get the wedge out and you spin it, and that is kind of the American way, versus when you look overseas and you see the guys playing in the UK and Ireland and all these links courses, they are exactly what you said, playing the bump and runs. I remember watching Rory at the Open this year, and Cam Smith at the Open this year, even though he's Australian, it's a little different, but them being able to play it a little bit better. Whereas even though Scotty Scheffler played great, he even said he's not comfortable on links courses yet, because it's just not, it's very much like how Bubba Watson was never comfortable at Link, never comfortable at the Open Championship, even when he was at the top of his game back in 2010, 2012, because I hit a high cut and I know I can get it over these trees with this high cut, and that's great. But then I come here and I hit a high cut and it goes, instead of going 310 yards, it goes 250. And oh, by the way, it didn't cut because the wind is 30 miles an hour off the ocean. So I just find it fascinating how you have to play a completely different game than what you're usually playing. And the way you summed it up there and the way you sum it up in the podcast too is amazing. Like that you have to do that. And I think I wrote it down in my notes that if I ever play Bandon Dunes, I wrote it down in my notes that if I play Bandon Dunes, I need to play the par 3 course first. So that's very, very helpful.
Yeah, there you go. Can I get meta for a second?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like life in the way of like, think about how often you go to a place like Bandon and the entire time you're kind of fighting the fact that it's different, right? You're fighting the fact that what you know isn't working. Whereas imagine you just accept that it's different. And the fact that it's different, that means you're not going to play it very often, which means that it's a really unique, fun experience, you know? And it's so interesting to me how just what we focus on could make that trip super frustrating, which is a tragedy, really. Yeah. It's such a special place. Versus feeling on cloud 9, regardless of how you're playing, because you're playing in a different way. And guess what? You've never played that way. So there's going to be a lot of things that you learn along the way because you never do it, just like Scotty Scheffler said.
Exactly.
So, you know, I think that's a good reminder for a lot of stuff of like, sometimes you just got to, you know, accept what is instead of pushing against it and wishing for something different, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of something completely different and an amazing experience.
Nice segue.
I know, because we talked about it earlier. I know you knew I was bringing this up, but and correct me if I'm wrong. This year, was this the first time you went to the Masters this year? And you were able to share. And did you guys win the lottery, or was it that you were able to get tickets somehow?
I won the lottery.
I remember watching that. I think I saw it on the Friday because I know you went on the Thursday, but I think I saw your recap video of you guys getting up at 4 a.m. and going there and you know, being able to share it with your dad and being able to share it with your fan. Like, just talk about I wish Tim was still here because Tim actually won the lottery for next year, so he's going.
Amazing.
But just kind of share the experience of being able to go to Augusta National for the first time and kind of seeing it as, you know, I think it's probably the greatest course in the world if you're not including like St. Andrew's history. Yeah. Like, I would think Augusta National is probably the greatest course in the world. And obviously prestigious, everything like that. But just what's it like getting to Augusta and going up that beautiful, beautiful driveway and getting in there?
Yeah, I mean, look, quick story was first time I ever applied for the lottery was in 2010, and I won. And I was like, oh, that was easy. And I was 22 years old. I just started working at TaylorMade's ad agency in San Diego. And just so you know, when you start in advertising, like, I negotiated, my negotiation got me to like 28 grand a year. Okay. So I'm making dirt, and I'm still playing golf every weekend. I was literally like paycheck to paycheck, but I was not going to not play golf in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So it's funny. I thought it was easy. And then I went 12 years not getting it. And by the way, I sold those tickets because I couldn't afford to go. So I sold them to someone in Atlanta and a friend of a friend. And so I had never been, and I thought it was easy. And then year after year, I get that email just like everybody else. It says, sorry, you didn't win. I actually won in 2019 for 2020, but it got, obviously with COVID, and then it got pushed because of the limited attendance in 2021. So we got pushed to 2022. And it really was such a special experience. I kind of describe it as like, it was like, oh, what did I compare it with? It was like the combination of like the Truman Show mixed with like Field of Dreams, in the sense of like, there's always like inclement weather that time of year. So the day before, I had Wednesday tickets. The people that had Tuesday tickets got rained out at 10 a.m. So just imagine the people that win the lottery, you only get one day. I'm pretty sure you can only get one day, 4 tickets max. So, unless you're spending a lot of money to get tickets for more days, we flew out from Monday to Thursday just to go on Wednesday, traveled full day, travel day from LA. So we played golf on Tuesday to go Wednesday. If we were going to get rained out on Thursday or on Wednesday, it's a very real possibility that we only might get a couple hours. So, we're there, and luckily we got, there was a delay for like 20 minutes. We had to leave. That was another surprising thing. You can't stay in.
You have to leave the course.
You have to leave and go to your cars. And it's the reason why I say Truman Show is because this voice echoes in Augusta National. You have no idea where it's coming from, in the trees. And it's saying, there is a weather advisory. Please go back to your cars and turn to this radio station and tune in. It's very old school, for if you can come back. And so we left for 20 minutes. Luckily, we were able to come back in, and we had already shopped and gotten merch and stuff. But that was the weird thing that I would do differently, is because of the weather, the looming weather. Luckily, we got to go back in. We stayed till 4 p.m. For the par 3 tournament, which was awesome. But I was kind of like, we need to walk every hole. And because we needed to walk every hole before the rain was coming by like 10 a.m., I didn't have as much time to really savor it, and really sit on each hole. And I didn't really care about watching shots. Personally, I cared about seeing the course.
Yeah.
So if I could do it, I mean, I don't know if I could really do it differently in that scenario, because I didn't want to miss a hole. But if there's a way for you to walk the course, and then there's a way for you to go back and get your chair and sit and like amen corner, or 13 was amazing. Just being on that fairway and seeing that par 5, that iconic par 5, and it's off in the distance. It almost looks fake. It almost looks like a green screen. I have a picture of my dad and my buddy and my brother touching the grass just to make sure it was real. And so there's definitely like this air to it. The fact that nobody has phones, people are really friendly. Like, people talk to each other about what's going on. What did you hear? There's no checking updates on your phone. Everyone's giddy to be there. It's very similar to my first time I went to St. Andrews. It's like, everyone's just having one of the best days of their life, and there's a real energy to that. And it's a beautiful, and I didn't imagine that it would be so big.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about the elevation change. That is true. It's massive, but the massiveness of the property, it's epic. The holes are just so massive that it's you feel like a little ant, in an experiment. So yeah, it was amazing. I can't wait. Hopefully I can go back and just find my spot and sit and take it all in. But yeah, it's an amazing place.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. I know when Tim listens back, he'll be very excited, and he'll definitely take your opportunities on that. So Evan, before we wrap up, we always ask 2 questions from everyone. First off, any holes in one?
Yes, but there's a debate on it, so maybe you can have your listeners debate it. It was at an executive course in San Diego called Loma Santa Fe. It was 105 yards. I hit it over a bunker. I was like 23, still working in that ad job, and everyone I was with was like belligerent drunk. So when people were going crazy. At first I thought they were punking me. And then I had crazy anxiety because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to afford buying everybody drinks. I believe that rule should be reversed personally, but yeah. So I don't know. I believe it's a hole in one because most hole in ones are par threes.
Yeah.
But
no, that counts.
Some
That
people say
100%
an executive course, par three course. So I've always dreamed of like getting an iconic hole in one, you know, at like Bandon or Sand Valley or in
like Pebble Beach
Scotland or
number
something.
6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. I mean, I didn't see it go in. So I walked up and I got a little, you know, a little sheet and everything. But yes, technically I do.
No, that counts. No, not technically. Not technically. No, that counts. It's
you.
over 100 yards. It's a core. Okay. If it's a par 3 course, right? If it's just a
it might have been
par 3
playing
course,
95 though. So
who cares? Who cares at that? I'll bring out the Bostonian in me. Who cares? Sound like Peter Griffin over here. Oh my God. No, but hey, that counts for me. Anything over, if it's like that's good in my book. So you got the Duffin up approval on that side. Heck, I would almost count mini golf freaking holes in one. So, you know, I'm a little different on that side, but yeah, no, that's fantastic. We do not have any holes in one, which kind of sucks, but we'll get there. We're going to get there. I think one of my buddies posted that he just got a hole in one, and, you know, he's not the best golfer in the world and he doesn't really take it seriously. And he goes out like, you know, once every 3 months. And I'm like, son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, are you joking? Like, I'm out here grinding and you get it. It's brutal. But again, back to the positiveness. Got to get the positiveness back. Yeah. And final question that we always, or I guess I'll do the 2 final questions if you don't mind. So first one, it's what Tim calls his golf. So we have golfer poles. It's not really a golfer pole in this situation. You have your backyard, and your backyard can be any hole on any golf course ever, and it's just in your backyard. What hole would it be?
Wow. No restrictions on land?
No restriction. It's your backyard, so it could be at, if you're going to say at Bandon, it's you know, your backyard is hole 12 at Bandon Dunes or hole 18 at Bandon Dunes, anything like that.
Man, that is a great question. Originally I was like, got to do a par 3 because it's just so fun and easy. You could just hit shots all day. Can I not say short game area and a hole? It's like only a hole. Like, could I say a full short game area instead of a hole?
I mean, is it going to be is it going to be the Cradle at Pinehurst?
It's not going to be the Cradle at Pinehurst. It would be, well, all right. I was thinking like, because Mark Wahlberg's, you know, backyard's amazing with all of the like different short. I could just geek out on short game all day, and I've seen that make such a difference in the games. So on one hand, I kind of want to say that, but to answer your question directly, I'm in between 2. My first thing I thought of was number 10 at Riviera.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite par 4s in the world because I love holes that you can play it differently every time and kind of see, you know, what's the best way to play it.
Yep.
The other hole I would say, I didn't expect to say this, but that's right up there with it, is number 1 at Sheep Ranch at Bandon Dunes. Number 1 at Sheep Ranch is the best opening hole I've ever played. It kind of goes a little uphill.
Gotcha.
And you get over this crevice and it just goes right to the ocean. And there's this amazing ghost tree. It's actually this right here. This picture behind me is a picture of the green site at Sheep Ranch number 1. You could look it up on YouTube.
Oh, I will. Now I will. 100%.
It opens up and you go down. It's such a calm opening. If I left my house and could walk up this hill and play a par 5, reachable par 5, and then walk down to the ocean and just keep doing that over and over, that's pretty epic. So
that's awesome.
It's a tie between those 2.
That's
Maybe
awesome.
That's a cop-out answer.
No. Ties are allowed. So I will push back on your par 3 thing though, because most of us, so I say number 18 at Harbortown Golf Links, because I lived in Hilton Head for a while, and it's absolutely amazing. You're going into the lighthouse, the famous lighthouse, and the tees are back enough where it could be a short par 5, like if you really wanted to. Like the pro tees, I think are over 500 yards. So I'm like, yes, that's a par 5 in my book.
Yeah.
But I know Mike. I know some of the guys also say like 18 at Pebble, because you can play with par 5s. You can play it as a 3. You could shorten it and just play from 150 yards in. You can play it as a par 4, and you can play it from, right behind, about, I would say, like 100 yards behind the tall tree in the middle of the fairway. Or you can go all the way back and play it as a par 5 too. So that was always our debate. Would you go par 3, par 4, par 5? And then it turned into, well, what hole? So I have a little bit of a bias towards Hilton Head. And, if you hear any of our other episodes, one of our guys, Brian's like, stop talking about Hilton Head. Never. So I picked that one, and then we got a bunch of other ones too. And finally, last question, I promise. You are on a deserted island for an entire year by yourself. You have one club that you can hit as many biodegradable balls into the ocean. You have you have a putting green. You have, you don't have a full hole or anything, but you basically have a driving range and a chipping putting area. What club are you going to pick for an entire year to play with?
That's another good question. I mean, first I'm like, you got to go with a wedge, because like I could chip around all day, and just like leave this deserted island. I get saved like Tom Hanks and Castaway. And instead of sleeping on the floor, turning the light on and off, missing Wilson, I could be like this short game machine. So as much as I would love to be hitting, like a beautiful 7-iron or like mashing my 3-wood or my driver, I think I'm going to go with the 60 degree.
Okay.
I'm just going to get really good with my 60 degree. I can work on the bunkers from the sand.
Absolutely.
I can chip around. It's tough to not say putter because it's fun to putt, but I think I could get more creative and have more fun with chipping around different lies and stuff, different yardages. I could hit full wedge if I want.
Oh yeah. No, I said putter and I got ruthlessly destroyed. Yeah. They were just like, why would you say putter? How would you? And the rest of them said driver, or I think Brian might have said 7-iron, but yeah. So it's very interesting to hear kind of those. We love doing that just because it gets, you get to hear all these different answers and it's amazing. So fantastic. Well, Evan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We really appreciate it. If you are not following the Par Train, please go follow it. It is one of the best across social media. It's by far and away one of the best accounts wherever. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, it's a fantastic follow, and we really appreciate you kind of coming on and sharing your story with us today, Evan.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. This is fun. Feel free to DM me anytime with mental game questions, things you're struggling with. Happy to help. And that goes for your listeners too. I love getting people's messages. I do the best I can to reply to every one of them. So if there's questions, or you listen to an episode and you're not quite sure how to take it to the course, feel free to DM me and I'm happy to help.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.